Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report. Wherever you get your podcast, you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. And if you want to become a club member, use your laptop, go to the Ampire Media YouTube page, see the word join, click on that. I'm doing weekly chat, weekly private Zooms for the gold members. It then gets played for all the other members. So you get a lot more. It's about 40 minutes of just Q&A with what fans want to know from me. And it's just for you club members. So if you want to do that, go there. If not, we're going to keep rolling here, folks, because you get a lot from here just on this page. So anyway, let's get to it. Today is a 5 things I think Saturday. So before I get to that point, I want to start with the news. And that is a couple things. One, as you know, Dan Quinn's going to name captains every week. And this week it is Frankie Louvu. Loves the energy that he brings. And I agree with that. Like, he didn't make the noise last week. I think there were some plays, more things that he did, but I think the loud plays, I think one's going to happen. 1 or 2 will happen this week. Then Tyler Biadasz had a tough game against Vita, or did a nice job. He had a tough opponent against Vita Vea last week, did a good job. And now he's got maybe an even tougher, well, definitely an even tougher one in Dexter Lawrence. So he's another guy. And then the third one is Percy Butler. And I think this is a guy that has, to me, it really had a good summer, and it's well earned because, kind of came along kind of up and down. Felt like he finished strong last year, but I feel like in this system, he's been a nice job. So whether it's deep, he can also come up to the line. But what struck Quinn was how the team reacted when he announced to them that he was one of the captains. He said that really told him a lot, because he said they really reacted strongly for Butler, and that speaks volumes to who you can always tell when they say that, and then the team reacts a certain way. You know what that guy means to the team. And I think that's why they like Butler. He's also a good special teams player. So I think he's been a good third safety. So that's, anyways, so that's where we're at that. Emmanuel Forbes had the surgery on Friday on his thumb. I told you yesterday, didn't think that it would be a long-term thing. And it does not sound like it's still, like there's no IR. So it's possible that he'll be back within a couple of weeks. And I know he didn't get off to the start that you guys want, or that really probably anybody wanted. But he is one of their top 5 corners, and they do need him because he's ahead of some other guys for a reason. So in his absence, Michael Davis, Noah Igbenogany will combine to fill that role. You got Sammer still in the slot, and you obviously have Benjamin St-Juste on the other side. Finally, Johnny Newton. And now I'm taping this before the game statuses are known. So. But it certainly sounds like he's going to be listed as questionable. I definitely think there's a chance he plays this week. And we actually talked to Newton after practice. He felt pretty good. Now they always feel pretty good, right? They always feel like they can play. I think one of the benefits for a D lineman is that there's not as much, like Noah Brown's got to come here and really kind of process this offense, the terminology, all sorts of different things. The D tackle, a lot of times, like, use your technique, get here. You need to be in this cap here. And you have other people, you have Wagner, you have other guys around him that can help with the assignments when need be. So I think that probably makes his transition easier, which gives him a definite shot this week to play. He's got that speed and quickness. I think they're going to like that. It's a nice change of pace with, it actually goes along well with Allen and Payne, but he's a little bit smaller, but he's quick. And so we'll see what even helps. But I mean, it's a lot to ask for his first game, but like I said, definite optimism that he'll play. Anyway, that's it. Now, Malik Neighbors from New York also sounds like he's going to play. He was on the injury report for a day or so, but it certainly sounds like his knee is okay. And that's what Brian Dable told Giants reporters on Friday. Let's get to my 5 things right now. And I'm going to do this every week. And, to me, it's better than just a regular game preview, because this is a lot of stuff that I've picked up during the week, just trying to provide you a lot more insight to make you a more informed listener, viewer, whatever. Okay. So let's start with Jayden Daniels, because everything starts with Jayden Daniels. And what are some of the lessons that he would have learned last week? There are 2 plays that I think that the lessons can be learned right away. And they both involve Terry McLaurin. Now, not the deep one down the left side. We saw that, like, that's an easy one, just a little bit more loft. You had it, it was there. You'll hit it next time. The other ones involve just kind of on the go decisions. And one of them was the back shoulder fade to McLaurin. There's 2 lessons out of that one. So the first lesson for McLaurin is maybe getting a little bit more of a tighter split on that alignment, giving him more room to get outside, but also to keep and maintain the outside, because the corner was able to squeeze him a little bit to the sideline. So that fade was kind of taken away. The other lesson for Daniels, and this is where the chemistry starts to develop. The other lesson is it's the back shoulder on that one. So after a few yards, are you going to get him? Are you even? If you're not even, or if you don't have him, then you're getting to the back shoulder. And for sure, and that was the case here. The defensive back was on top of McLaurin, had him by about a half step. That's where, as they develop in their relationship, that's an easy back shoulder. Well, easy. It's a back shoulder read for Daniels. And I know he can do that because we saw it this summer. There was a play in training camp that finished on a drive where McLaurin was really, really pumped up because Daniels showed exactly that. So that's why I say, like, the reason why this team was so pumped and the coaches were, because what they felt with Daniels, that he handled everything well. He just needs experience. And that's one of them where you get that. The other thing that was available on that play was a ball over the middle of the Ertz. But if you're going to McLaurin on that one, get the read, process, get to that back shoulder. They'll get there. And I feel pretty confident about that. The other one involving McLaurin. So this was a couple plays. This was after that deep miss. So there was a ball where McLaurin goes to a motion, ends up kind of in the slot just off the left tackle. So on this play during the week, it was not there. Like the way the safeties react, it's not going to be there because the safety is going to stay over the top of McLaurin and it's going to take it away. He's got coverage underneath. Well, on this play, the safety kind of stops and then slides over to the outside. McLaurin now has the inside. All you got to do is lay it out there for him. But this was a predetermined read situation. Again, experience. So I think with experience, you learn, stick with it maybe just a little bit more. But Daniels went off a predetermined look, or predetermined the read based off the initial look. Well, the look changed after the snap. Now, my understanding is that the Bucs did not show that during, in other film, in other times. So that's why it was not a bad decision to look off it, but sometimes you stick with it just a titch more to make sure, because if you think that's a possibility, you want to do that. So that's not, and again, it's not a criticism. That's an experience thing. I think that's why they're excited, because they think that he's going to get there. Like the one thing one coach said to me is like, he did not look like a rookie in his first game. And you can look at other rookie quarterbacks around the league last week or in the past who look a lot more like a rookie than I think Daniels did. So those were two plays that I think that I think that they think he'll hit in the future. And that's why, that while it was only 20 points, they definitely feel like they left stuff on the field. And that's why they feel good going into week 2 at home against the Giants. And I can tell you, like, they're pretty, Dan Quinn, I think, is very excited about having a home opener here. They have to deliver. We know that. So now, facing the Giants defense compared to the past, this is number 2. Facing the Giants defense compared to the past, a lot more zone with Wink Martindale as a DC in the past, kind of like Captain Crazy, like very effective blitzes, especially against this team. But now they're more of he's gone. They're more of a 4-man rush. They only blitzed, I think it was 5 times last week. Maybe they'll do a little bit more. I'm sure a lot of it's situational. Like sometimes last week they fell behind, so a little bit harder. So I'll be curious to see if they maintain that sort of strategy this week. But they play a lot more zone, and I think that that can help regulate what this team needs to do or see on defense, and and it can help a young quarterback. Now, I don't think it's going to be this simple defense. They're going to show some different coverages and rotate out of it, especially against a rookie quarterback. But if you know that's most likely zone here, you can have your zone beaters and you can get those ready and get the ball out quicker in theory. Now, I'll get into the defensive line in a minute, because I think that's where the problems lie. But I do think like the secondary did not have a good game last week. Justin Jefferson is a different dude. And so, that's just different, but there were definite holes and gaps if you can at least give him some protection and then get the ball out. And one of the strengths I felt like for Daniels this summer was getting the ball out. And he did look, he looked good in practice. And one player told me, like, part of the thing is that he looked like Tom Brady in practice. Now he's being a little bit facetious, but the point is that's how much confidence they had in him and how he looked this summer. So I think that's why they feel good going forward, both Sunday and then beyond. But it can allow for a quick release and maybe, an unobstructed release for the receivers. Whereas last week, a lot more man. Now there's a pro and a con with them, because with the pro, with the man coverage, you beat that, you got a shot down the field. And they had a couple of those that they just didn't hit. And whereas with zone, everything's going to be testing your patience. And I think one of the things I think that's good about Daniels is he is a patient guy. Like, despite all these big plays at LSU, I think he understood, like even last week, if it's not in, there were times where he was a little bit maybe more cautious with the ball. And I don't think that's a problem here, right? So take the profit and just move the chains and then get for that big kill shot, right? So I think, I do think he's going to have a couple really big plays in this game, especially for home crowd. Like, these are the kind of guys that make big plays in these situations, right? The guy who is just somehow just a little bit different. So, I think he's going to be pumped up. I think he'll electrify the crowd. And, that's my little guess there. And I just think that's who he is. That's the kind of competitor he is. But you've got to be patient. Do not force it. You do not want the turnovers in this game, because as we've seen against the Giants, probably the number one thing that's turned those games in the past are the turnovers. You got to avoid those. And that goes back to strip sacks, et cetera. I'll get to the D-line in a minute. But that patience will help. And the other question I have against this defense, will his legs will he use his legs the same? In other words, against Tampa, there were definitely times where, he could have stayed in the pocket a little bit longer. And they know that. He knows that. But when he ran it, he was decisive. So there's two things in this game. First of all, like when you're running against man, you're going to have those free run. You see, like one of the things, and I've told you this before, but with the virtual reality headset that he uses, it helps him know the coverages, but also knows where the soft spots are to run. And I think that's one thing that, with that. Now with the zone, with the man, they're running guys off. So you got open gaps. Against zone, all the eyes are going to be on you. And the other question is, will they have a spy in him? That would be a natural byproduct of what he's shown. But will they do that? But with the zone, more eyes are on you. This is where you need to keep the ball alive this week. Get outside the pocket, keep it alive, force them to make a decision, dump it, or that, and if they're not, then you can take off, get your 10 yards, get down, whatever. Maybe you get a little bit more, but they think that's the thing this week. Does he keep the play alive because they're playing more zone, and it gives him maybe a little bit more opportunity to do that with only 4 rushes? But you do have athletic ends, and that could pose a little bit of problem. But I do think I'm curious how that plays out for sure. Number 3, the use of motion. So this is something I'm really curious about. And I knew this going in, that like Cliff Kingsbury does not use a lot of motion. When he was in Arizona, they were near the bottom of the league in number of times using motion. So not every coach wants to use it. I will say, when you look at the top offenses, San Francisco, Buffalo, the Rams, Tampa Bay used a lot of motion last week. Miami uses a lot of motion. But not everybody wants to use it. And so I kind of talked to other people, including my guy, Logan Paulson, because he's super, super smart, and he's way smarter than I'll ever be about football. That's why I like to pick the brains of the people who know a lot more. So just some of the stuff that there are a couple of things that are just my own thoughts too, but also kind of picking the brain. But one thing with Kingsbury offense, because it is a fast, like they want to go more up tempo. So when you're going up tempo, you're trying to simplify the defensive look. You're keeping a certain package, you're keeping that certain grouping on the field, and they have to be a little bit more regular because you're playing fast. So they don't have as much time to react to, formations, alignments, whatever. If you start going in motion, you may muddy that picture for the quarterback, in addition to, because you go in motion, now the defense is shifting along with it. Where is the quarterback at in terms of reading it? And where are the receivers at in terms of reading on the fly those changes in the defense based on your motion? So that's one thing. I think that's a big thing. Like they didn't go as up tempo as many times up tempo last week as I thought. I think part of it, and really didn't get into that too much this week, but part of it was defense couldn't get off the field. So you can't keep putting them back out there. But I wouldn't be surprised if they use a little bit more of that this week. And that's, or like maybe a short huddle. If you're huddling a lot, maybe you can go over a lot of things. Like the Niners, as Logan says, you may have three run plays in one huddle, or call them the huddle that you get up the line. So there's a little bit more to go over. Whereas here, I don't think you're going to get that. So But that's one thing. And not, it's funny because not every receiver wants to run out of motion. The other thing is you have to, as Logan explained, like if you're going to do that, you better know as a receiver how to run routes from each of those spots, because you're going to end up, you're starting here, you're going to end up over here. The only way to do effective is if you can run routes from each of those spots. Otherwise, it's kind of, it's a wash. But I'd be curious too to see how do they develop in this area, because two reasons. One, Anthony Lynn was with San Francisco. Adam Peters comes from San Francisco. They know the value of motion. Now, Brian Johnson was in Philly last year. They were one of the lower teams in the league. I think it was like the second least amount of times in motion, whether it's set at the snap or going or speed motion, at the snap. So curious to see, do they build to more motion, and do they run more this week, or are they going more up tempo, in which case maybe they don't need to run so much this week. I like motion, as your offense gets going, because to me, it forces the defense, you're forcing the defense to test their rules and their communication skills. Not everybody's really good at it. Now, some are really good at it and it won't matter. So I think that's one of the values of it. And then is it a speed motion? Is it just a motion to detect, try to give some clues to the quarterback? And again, sometimes you can give too many clues. You don't want to give too much. You don't want to overdo some of those clues, right? And just kind of bog down the thought process or the speed with which a guy can play with, but you do want to, help create a clearer picture for them. But that's in theory what the up tempo can do for them. So let's see how that plays out this week. Do they do more or not? Number 4, your boy, Daniel Jones, the Washington killer. Now he's 5-1-1 against the Redskins or Commanders and football team, whatever it is. A couple of things with that. One, when you look at the games they played, while Daniel Jones has had better games against these guys, the offense for Washington has stunk. Like they in their 10, I think it's 10 games against the Giants in the last 5 years, they've scored 20 or less 7 times. That's really bad. So as much as Daniel Jones has hurt them, to me, it's been the offense's inability to produce that's really kept them from winning. Because you look at the scores, if you score 23 or more, you're flipping that record. So that's a big key here, is get the offense going, so that way Daniel Jones isn't the guy when and they beat you 2019 because Daniel Jones ran 40 yards on a scramble and get you down to the 10 to kick a game winner, something like that. You don't want that. But the one thing I wonder with him is coming off that ACL, where are his legs at? Like in terms of he is what everybody says, like the guy's an athletic quarterback. So it's not like this is the only team he runs against. Against Dallas, against Dan Quinn's defense a couple of years ago, was he had one game where it was 14 or 15 carries for 90 some yards. So he can hurt teams with his legs. That's what he does. With that ACL, does he still have that same level of ability to hurt you there? Now, the other thing Minnesota did is they did a good job pressuring him. And so when he was under duress, his off-target rate was 36.4%. It's pretty high. When there was no pressure, his off-target rate was 14.8%. Pretty big difference. So there's a key. Now, sometimes when you're watching him, the mechanics are a little bit off, the timing's a little bit off. He doesn't look comfortable throwing off more of his front foot, not really sticking his back foot in there and drilling it. So there are just some issues there. Now, they will try to use his legs. They have multiple design runs in the red zone, some power with the quarterback. And when he gets out, I think, is he going to look to run or look to hurt you to Malik Neighbors or somebody down the field? Because that's the guy you're going to have to worry about for sure. They will work hard to get the ball to Neighbors. He only had 5 catches, but there was one time we had 4 attempts to him in a row. And so they're going to try to get him. Sometimes it's off a fast motion just before the snap and he's running wide and cutting up, things like that to get him the ball. Sometimes, hitches against zones. They're going to get him the ball. He will turn up quickly. They want to get him some momentum to get it. So look for them to really kind of work hard to get him the ball. The other one is Robinson against Samerstill in the slot. I think that's going to be an interesting matchup for sure. I think Samerstill, I'll be curious to see how he improves after week 1. You seem like the leverage at times for him, he has to learn how to play certain leverages in certain situations, and then how to, come where to cut off of some of the rubs or, just whatever, but his, I think that's the big thing for him is the leverages. Does that improve? I think that's going to be a key matchup for them for sure. And then Benjamin St-Juste, one of the things that he had of the corners, he had the better game. Now that's not saying a lot because they didn't have a good game, but where can he get better? Like I'll give you one example on the touchdown pass to Mike Evans down in the corner where he's really good coverage. So what could he have done better? Because I remember I told you during the game review that, not every corner is comfortable turning at the last second and trying to find the ball because you may not find the ball. Not every corner can do that. You got to read the hands, you read the eyes. Can you get your hand up there? And I had talked to one defensive coach like that. If he had done that, it would have been a spectacular play given the caliber of the receiver. So what could he have done differently? Because there's always something you can do a little bit better on any play for the most part. So what St-Juste said he could have done better is if you watch him at about the 10-yard line, he's even with him. You're even with him. Now you start to look for the ball. Now you give yourself a chance to turn, look for the ball and find it. You look at the last second, you're not going to get it. But if you look at the 10-yard line, knowing where's that ball going, it's going into the end zone. That's the lesson for him. So that's something that he said he was working on all week. Now, they don't have Mike Evans on the Giants. Malik Neighbors is a different kind of receiver, but he's going to be tested in that way again. Why? Because why not? And so does he improve there? I think St-Juste is really good at understanding what he did right or what he did wrong on a play. The question will always be, do you put it then into practice? That to me is the key for him. If you want to improve as a corner, it's the guys who put it into practice who do it, and not just the guys who say, I know what I did. I know that makes for a good coach, but you want to see a really good corner. So let's see how St-Juste progresses in that area for sure. And I already told you one of my bold predictions here, and this isn't so bold, but I definitely think that Luvu's going to have a good game. And I don't, I think there's going to be some opportunities for some blitzes. One, I think that'll be for sure. Like one of the things too that I saw with where the Giants allowed some pressure is off some of the stunts. So to me, if I'm doing it, I'm running some tackle stunts with the linebacker tackles, some games there. And then one of the sacks for the Vikings, it went Andrew Thomas left tackle is really good, but you're going to do some damage. You can hurt them a little bit inside with Runyon left guard. Thought he was okay. I think the center was John Michael Schmitz was at best okay. So I think they can do some damage there. Can you get some games inside there? Take the tackle up. I saw the one time tackle just runs upfield and cuts underneath, gets the sack. So, pinch the pocket, make it tight and get in there. But also I think, can you use Luvu in some of those games? I think that's where he can make a mark, and maybe Samuel off some corner slot blitzes. But I think that's where you can make a mark for sure. And then the other thing that has to be better there against Jones is the tackling against the whole team. They don't have that dynamic back, and where Singletary is fine back. They don't have Saquon Barkley, who can kill you on any play, especially in the pass game. But the tackling has to be better. I liked overall what Wagner did, right? And I think he had multiple tackles for loss. That's good. And I think where some of those tackles for loss came from the veteran savvy, just knowing how to read and get after it. So I think, but the tackling this week has to be a dramatically better than it was last week. So again, keep him in the pocket, stunts in games. Let's see how they do with that. So last thing, here we go to the Giants defensive line, because that's a huge thing this week, right? Starts with Dexter Lawrence. We talk about the ends. That line starts with Dexter Lawrence, because you heard what Dan Quinn said about how good he felt Lawrence was the other day. He thinks he's one of the top. With Aaron Donald out, he said he and Max Crosby, or no, Kingsbury said this, the two most disruptive guys, and he threw Chris Jones in there. So I asked one of the linemen today, like, what do you think about Lawrence? Like, he put him up there with Chris Jones, so as the two best interior defensive linemen. And one guy told me, like, the difference with him and some other D linemen is he's nonstop. Like he said, the only time that he takes a break is when he's on the sideline. Not every D tackle is like that. Not every D lineman is like that. So when he's in the game, it's a high effort guy for sure. The other difference is, I think he's listed at around 340. I think they're going to call BS on that. I think some of these guys think he's closer to 370, but he has length with that. So he's got some power with that weight, but he has good length. And that's partly what makes him dangerous, is that length for an interior defensive lineman for sure. So, that's going to be a big challenge there. Then the DNs. Now, this is going to be, as you know, that's a big worry, right? I do think like Cornelius Lucas is pretty decent as a pass protector for sure. And I'll be curious to see how much they split with he and Coleman. Coleman got like 14 snaps last week. I would think he's going to get a little bit more this week, but I would think that Lucas starts and then Coleman rotates in some. I like Coleman. I love the attitude, the way he blocks. I think in the run game, he's going to be a big help and get him on the move. He's athletic. I think you need to use that. With the ends, though, with Thibodeau and Brian Burns, the quiet last week, but they caused damage. Like, you have to be aware. So while they didn't have the numbers, they impact the game in terms of how you have to block them. You have to change some things to block them, whether it's chipping, like Terry McLaurin chipped on the end last week. He's done that before, but that was, you don't see it too often. He'll have to do some of that. Like, you can do it by alignment. Maybe you line the tight end just a little bit off the tackle, force the ends to be a little bit wider, and then you chip, and then now you're giving the quarterback a little bit extra time to do something with it, because by the time they get to the tackle, now you do something. The other thing you have to worry about is the inside spin move. Like, Burns can get that inside spin move, so Wiley's got to be aware of that for sure. They're very similar. They're quick, and it's going to be a challenge, because the thing that I would worry about the most with Jayden Daniels back there is the strip sack right now. So you've got to give him that time, and he's going to have that feel in the pocket to know that these guys are coming, and depending on the blocking formation or the chips or whatever, how he's going to have to react. But that, to me, handling that front is going to be key. Like, especially Lawrence can be a dominant force inside, and you get those ends outside pinching. Now you got problems. I will say, when Lawrence is out of the game, run at the Giants front, because now Cherokee is a really good linebacker, but I would do that because Lawrence is that good. But I think, again, chipping, alignment, I think you can take care of some of that. Some quick throws, you can take care of some of that, a little bit of play action, there's ways to mitigate that rush, but you have to do it, because if you let them get to him consistently, it's going to be a wrap. And I don't think that will happen, but I do think that they're going to make a lot of noise because they're good, and because it's not like that's a strength for Washington. And so Wiley's got to be on his game. But if you're, the hard part is to help inside when you have Lawrence you have to contend with as well. So anyways, those are my 5 things. I think those are things I've learned throughout the week, just picking up stuff. I hope you like that, and I hope you feel like it gives you some insight, and now it gets you ready for the game. So, I like Washington in this one. I don't know why. I've liked them all the time against this team, and I'm never right. So is this going to be another time like that? I don't know. But if you keep saying it, one time I'll be right. At some point, you can't keep losing to a bad team, and the Giants are not a good team. I do think it could be that the Vikings are a little bit better defensively, especially than what there's still a lot of things to clear up early in the season. You don't know what's real and what isn't, but you can't keep losing to this team. And it's a home opener. I do not call it, in terms of building this team, this is not necessarily a must win, but in terms of the fan psyche and all that, you got to win this game. And I think it'd be nice for them to go out and watch Jayden Daniels work some magic, get this team over the hump against the Giants, and get out of there with the W. You've got to do it at some point. So if you keep saying it, someday it's going to happen. Anyway, folks, that's it from me. I appreciate you tuning in. I'll talk to you after the game with a wrap up of the Giants and the Commanders. I'll talk to you next time.